As we continue a gradual lifting of restrictions, our mission remains the same. Like each of you, we want to lift all restrictions and return to our way of life.
And in order for us to actually address the hunger concerns, at least specifically to Guam, we need to be able to lower the cost of bringing quality food into our territory and onto our tables.
Respect for others, the values that we hold as a community, those have all eroded over time. There seems to be a very desperate situation with the general public.
Our workforce is changing and our students need to be prepared to face the challenges that lie ahead.
Real investments in education require real action so that our kids have the best chance to succeed.
We gave teachers a pay raise because we value the important work they do for our children every day.
We provided funds that support children with special needs and their families so that their challenges can be addressed.
We promised to rebuild Simon Sanchez High School, and we are.
We expanded connection to the internet and community programs to empower our children.
We expanded access to training and we provided scholarships so anyone interested could get certified.
4 years ago, we made these commitments and we delivered.
Let's continue our progress. We are all in this together and we humbly ask for your vote. This is Governor Leon Guerrero and I approve this message.
I hope that you are enjoying this debate between the candidates for the governor of Guam. Governor Camacho and Governor Leon Guerrero both have records as governor that we can compare and contrast. Governor Camacho had it rough when he served as governor. He started his first term with a natural disaster. It wasn't easy, and it also didn't help that he had such a rocky relationship with his lieutenant governor. History has not been kind to Governor Camacho. Guam has had to deal with so many critical problems and issues after he was governor that all came as a direct result of his mismanagement during his tenure. His so-called solutions created so many more problems than they solved. We must keep this in mind. Governor Leon Guerrero has also had it rough, and a few of her appointees have been disappointing. But despite that, under her leadership, Guam is doing a lot better than the majority of other jurisdictions during this pandemic. There are still lots of room for improvement. Nothing's ever perfect, but I'd say she's doing a great job, all things considered. This message was paid for by Responsible Guam, a political action committee. Peter J. Santos, Chairman.
Well, half a day, everyone. Welcome
a gradual
gubernatorial debate. It's Platform 2022. I'm Silva Taijeron.
And I'm Phill. Guerrero. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.
And joining us tonight, we have the candidates. We have Governor Leon Guerrero. Welcome, Governor.
Thank you.
And joining us tonight, we also have Congressman Nicolas. Half a day, Congressman.
Hi.
So we do want to welcome you here to tonight's debate. And just to start us off, we want to explain the rules for the benefit of our candidates here in the studio with us and our viewing audience. So prior to tonight's debate, an independent panel of professionals that consisted of academics, educators, business people designed about 30 questions over 9 topics. The topics are health, the federal government and the military buildup, education, regional and international policy, public safety, political status and decolonization, economy and the cost of living, infrastructure and workforce, and a miscellaneous topic with various questions. These topics were provided to the campaigns and the gubernatorial candidates, but the questions remained under lock and key until they are being asked here tonight.
Okay, and well, this Saturday, the two camps participated in a straw poll, to determine the order of the opening statements and closing statement delivery and the rotation sequence for the debate questions. I said there are two camps. We did extend an invitation to the third candidate, Governor Felix Camacho. However, we did not get a response. But going on with the debate rules, to our left is the timekeeper, Johnny Rosario. She'll start the clock for all the answers, responses, and rebuttals as soon as the host throws to each respective candidate. Now, depending on the length allotted each candidate, she'll hold up a sign signifying how much time you have left. You'll see the markers. We've got 60 seconds left. We've got 30 seconds left, 10 seconds left. And once the time is up, she'll ring a bell, and I'll stop the candidate from talking any further. Now, tonight's debate will begin with opening statements from both of you candidates. Each will have 3 minutes to deliver their statement.
We also have rules for who's providing answers and rebuttals. So just to remind our candidates and to inform our viewers, there will be 3 rounds of 6 questions each tonight. The questions will rotate according to the topic between each of our candidates. The questions are color-coded in this bowl and are mixed up. Mana will have the job of pulling a question from the corresponding topic we will be asking at random. The candidate who the question is first posed to will have 90 seconds to answer. The Mana will be able to repeat the question for the other candidate, who will have 60 seconds to respond. And then the candidate who provided that initial 90 seconds response will have a 30-second rebuttal opportunity. I will have the ability to begin a final round of discussion at my discretion to allow for clarification. This discussion will be divided equally between both candidates, who will have 30 seconds each for our moderated discussion. Now, once these answers and possible follow-up answers are concluded, that question will close and the host will move on to the next question. We ask our candidates not to use any succeeding questions to respond to any previous things that have been brought up.
Now, we will ask that the candidates refrain from interrupting the other candidate during their allotted time. If such an interruption occurs, the moderator will maintain order and time will pause during this period so that the proper candidate doesn't lose time during the interruption.
Okay, we also have closing statements. So at the very end of the debate, each of our candidates will have 3 minutes for a closing statement. So before we throw to our first commercial break, we wanted to make sure that both of our candidates understood anything. Could we clear anything up for either our governor or our delegate?
Not at all. It's very well put together. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us here at Platform 2022. We're going to take our first commercial break, hear from some of the people that helped bring this event to you, and we will be back with opening statements from our candidates in the first gubernatorial debate for this year's election season.
4 years ago, we said we would make public safety a priority, and we did. We believe that law enforcement officers are important, and we gave them a pay raise because we value their sacrifices to keep us safe.
We said we would ensure there are more police officers in our villages, and we delivered. We promised to provide them new vehicles and the tools they need to protect you, and we have.
We assured you we would promote community policing, and we are working with neighborhood watch programs in the villages.
We pledged to expand drug treatment services to help people become productive members of society.
And so we opened a detox unit and are expanding capacity.
4 years ago, we made these commitments and we delivered.
Let's continue our progress. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask for your vote. This is Governor Guerrero, and I approve this message.
his 2 terms in Congress, Mike San Nicolas missed more votes than any previous Guam delegate and ranks highest of worst voting records in current Congress. San Nicolas went AWOL over and over again while pocketing hundreds of thousands from taxpayers. Mike didn't even bother to show up and vote for pandemic funding legislation for minority small businesses on Guam. He missed votes on pandemic funding for Guam residents struggling to pay rent. Instead, Mike San Nicolas was using tax dollars for family vacations and for $3,000 meals at the most exclusive DC restaurants. When Guam needed Mike, he abandoned us. Taxpayers paid Mike San Nicolas, and he didn't vote, so why should we vote for him? No show, Congressman. No way, Mike.
This message was paid for by Responsible Guam, a political action committee. Peter J. Santos, Chairman.
Welcome back to the gubernatorial debate platform 2022. We've got Governor Leon Guerrero and Congressman Mike San Nicolas, and we will now begin the debate with opening statements.
And according to the straw poll that was conducted this Saturday, Governor Leon Guerrero, we will begin with you. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mana and Phill. It's exciting to be here with everyone streaming us at home and on their phones, and to have this chance to discuss the issues with my opponent. When Josh and I ran for office 4 years ago, the problems were well known because it was the same story from every election in recent history. Our government struggled under a crushing deficit. Taxes were raised on the backs of the small businesses. Families waited months for their tax refunds. We lost teachers, nurses, and police officers faster than we could recruit them because they hadn't received a meaningful raise in years. Government infrastructure was crumbling, yet despite these challenges, Josh and I were never more confident in Guam's future. Not only because of our commitment to hard work and smart solutions, but because we know Guam's people always fight our way back. Your faith in our future helped us keep our promises. We eliminated an $82 million deficit without borrowing. Your tax refunds are now paid within weeks for the first time in decades. Teachers, nurses, and law enforcement officers finally got much-deserved raise as they continue to nurture and secure us. And most small businesses now pay a lower tax than any time in the last 30 years. And all this in the midst of the worst health and economic crisis in Guam's modern history. COVID-19 stole too many lives and livelihoods. And now, just as we are beginning the path of recovery, a global issues thousands of miles away are piling more pain on our small island. But tonight, I tell the people of Guam that our sacrifice has not been in vain. Businesses are finally reopening. Jobs are coming back. Tourists are starting to return, and hotels are coming alive. Unprecedented military and government spending is already lifting us up, and it is going to continue at a record pace. This debate is about where Guam is headed, and I hope tonight to show you how our administration has delivered, keeping our people safe and investing in revitalized infrastructure, new programs to help families to buy their first home, universal health care, basic internet for all, new money for childcare, better schools, a new hospital, and new industries that will diversify our economy. All achieved while keeping our finances stable and our children's future safe. The big question of this election is, who do you trust to keep Guam moving forward?
Thank you, Governor Leon Guerrero. Congressman San Nicolas, you have 3 minutes for your opening statement.
Thank you, Phill. I'd like to first begin by giving a shout out to my wife, Kathy, my son, Caleb, and my daughter, KK, who are watching this likely at a very late hour on the East Coast. Daddy misses you guys so much. I love you, and what we're going to talk about here today is why Daddy's away for so long and so often. There's so much that we need to do for our island, and we want to do good things for our people. But I want to first begin by thanking also my partner, Sabrina Salas Matanani, who's with us in studio here today as well. And also thanking Governor Leon Guerrero for joining us in this debate, and our host, The Point, Kandit News, Phill, Mana, Johnny, thank you guys all so much for making the time and putting the professionalism in here today for our people to be able to hear the issues. When we first ran for Congress 4 years ago, I remember a lot of conversations happening and people sharing their sentiments. They came up to me and they said, you have a lot of time. Why don't you just wait for Madeline to finish her service? Why don't you just continue to serve in the legislature? And we decided that that was not something that we're going to allow us to be discouraged by, because we knew that there were things that had to get done federally. We knew that we could bring new methods into the way things have been done and bring actual outcomes and solutions for our people on the issues that were going on in the U.S. Congress. And in 4 years, we did so much that many of us didn't really believe could get done. And so now, as those same questions pop up and they ask, why don't you stay in the Congress? Why don't you just continue doing what you're doing there? Sabrina and I are both making very big career changes because we want to focus on the whole reason why we're here to begin with. Public service, going where we're needed, and doing what needs to be done so that the same headlines and the same topics and the same problems aren't going to be things that we're going to be having debates about 20 years later. In 2002, when Governor Camacho was governor, the budget of the government of Guam was $300 million. Today, it's pushing $1 billion. 20 years later, 3 times more, the same problems, the same headlines. We were able to resolve congressional issues in 4 years. It doesn't take 2 terms to fix things. If you go in there with the focus, if you go in there with the purpose, and if you make the people be the whole reason why you're doing the work that you do. Bree and I were willing to make this sacrifice, if you will so have us. So we humbly ask for your support. Let's change course, Guam, and let's build a real future. Thank you.
And thank you, Congressman. Thank you, Governor. We're going to go into our first round of questions. We've got 3 rounds coming up, and they will be randomly selected, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
4 years ago, we expressed our belief that a strong economy depends on a strong middle class, that small businesses need help to survive in tough times, and new industries are needed to diversify our economic base. The pandemic proved us right in so many ways.
We said we would support tax cuts for small businesses, and we did. We said we would streamline government services to create a more business-friendly environment, and we are. We said we would invest in infrastructure improvements, and we have. We said we would expand opportunities for our people to learn much-needed trades, and we delivered.
Let's continue this progress. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask for your vote. This is Governor Leon Guerrero, and I approve this message.
I hope that you are enjoying this debate between the candidates for the governor of Guam. Governor Camacho and Governor Leon Guerrero both have records as governor that we can compare and contrast. Governor Camacho had it rough when he served as governor. He started his first term with a natural disaster. It wasn't easy, and it also didn't help that he had such a rocky relationship with his lieutenant governor. History has not been kind to Governor Camacho. Guam has had to deal with so many critical problems and issues after he was governor that all came as a direct result of his mismanagement during his tenure. His so-called solutions created so many more problems than they solved. We must keep this in mind. Governor Leon Guerrero has also had it rough, and a few of her appointees have been disappointing. But despite that, under her leadership, Guam is doing a lot better than the majority of other jurisdictions during this pandemic. There are still lots of room for improvement. Nothing's ever perfect, but I'd say she's doing a great job, all things considered. This message was paid for by Responsible Guam, a political action committee. Peter J. Santos, Chairman.
Welcome back to Platform 2022, the first gubernatorial debate of this year's election season. And it is now time to begin our first round of questions for the candidates we have here today, Governor Leon Guerrero and Delegate Nicolas.
And you'll remember that the categories, the questions will be asked in accordance with how the straws were pulled on Saturday. So beginning this round is Congressman Mike Nicolas with the question dealing with health. And feel free to ask me to repeat the question at any time if you can't hear me or if you just want to hear it again. I'd be glad to do so. Congressman, the pandemic also underscored the added risk facing our residents who are considering suicide. What part of your record shows your work to reduce the number of local people who complete or attempt suicide? You have 90 seconds.
Thank you for the question, Mana. Congressionally, it's challenging for us to introduce legislation that's going to specify those kind of solutions for our island specifically. But there are a lot of things that we can do when it comes to addressing the issue locally. And I believe that the problem really centers around a lack of solutions locally. What we need to do locally in order for us to address the suicide problem that we have here on our island is first understand what the cause is. And the cause is that there's just so many people here that just don't feel like there's enough for them to keep going. And that's really sad. It's really tragic. And then when we don't have the healthcare professionals in Guam behavioral health and wellness to be able to be there to provide them with the services they need, because we have not made the necessary investments to have the right experts to be there for them, it just compounds the problem. And so the suicide rate is really an example of what's going on in our community and how much they are suffering. And so locally, what we need to do locally is we need to make sure the resources are going to the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center, recruiting the necessary specialists for our people to get the help, and then addressing also at the same time the cost of living problems, the economic problems, and the drug problems that are forcing people into those unfortunate outcomes.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Congressman. The question now goes to Governor Leon Guerrero. I'll repeat the question before you answer. The pandemic also underscored the added risk of facing our residents who are considering suicide. What part of your record shows your work to reduce the number of local people who complete or attempt suicide?
Well, first of all, we have invested a lot of resource into our Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. We have hired psychiatrists, psychiatric nurses. We've hired counselors. We've hired social workers. We are on a rotating basis with other psychiatrists on island. Psychologists are on board. Suicide is very painful, very tragic, and I think we are seeing more in the men and at a younger age. And we have invested these monies, and one big impact is we are now tied up with the National Suicide Prevention calls, and we have been getting a lot of good feedback and good results from decreasing this god-awful attempt of suicide.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Medical professionals will not agree that we've made the necessary investments into mental health here on Guam, behavioral health. We have a physician assistant who is dispensing psychiatric medication at the Guam Behavioral Health and Wellness Center. We do not have enough psychiatrists in the agency, nor do we have enough on the island. We need to do the necessary work to recruit and to retain these professionals, and we need to invest in those kind of things because suicide is not the answer. And if you are contemplating that, please reach out and seek the help that you need, but our government needs to provide that help.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question we're going to move on to is in the category of federal government and the military buildup. We'll start with Governor Lulian Guerrero. The Navy's ongoing net negative pledge, meaning it will occupy less land once the buildup is completed compared to before. Some residents whose property was seized post-World War II by the military wondering whether their ancestral land will be returned back. If elected, what is your promise to those whose lives were uprooted due to the rampant federal land taking of the past? You have 90 seconds.
As governor, I have met with these landowners. I have heard their stories, and it really is sad that their land in which they have worked from and provided productive products, crops, and food and sustenance for them were taken away. We sat down, we talked, and each landowner was met with our ancestral land director. So we approached it in a very sensitive, very compassionate, and they understood that these lands are not being returned. These lands are being leased for the use of a medical center complex. And if we do not have or do a medical center complex, it will be returned back to the Navy. I think we need to work closer in Congress to get those land returns back, as that's how usually happens. Lands that were returned by federal government was done through congressional work. I don't see that happening, and it's unfortunate because we do need a congressman that really does do its work specifically on these issues of land return.
Thank you, Governor. We'll now turn to Congressman Nicolas. The question again, the Navy's ongoing net negative pledge, meaning it will occupy less land once the buildup is completed compared to before. Some residents whose property was seized post-World War II by the military wondering whether their ancestral land will be returned back. If elected, what is your promise to those whose lives were uprooted due to the rampant federal land taking of the past? You have 60 seconds.
I think the issue is being focused primarily around those ancestral landowners concerning Eagle Field. And the governor's statements are incorrect. The Navy, a couple of years ago, actually identified those lands as excess. Now, in the NDAA, it very specifically says that the governor can petition the Navy to begin the process of returning lands that are determined excess. We wrote a letter to this governor asking if she ever wrote to the Department of the Navy asking for those lands to be returned. She hasn't responded. We've met with those ancestral landowners that are concerned about Eagle Field. We talked about their issues and we asked them, what do you want us to do? And as we speak, they're coming in and they're reviewing a follow-up letter we're going to be transmitting to this governor to ask her, have you actually asked for that land to be returned? Leasing the land may be an option, but if the Navy is already identifying as excess, and if there's federal law that allows it to be returned and it requires the governor to act, then the governor should act.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, you have 30 seconds.
I have requested those land returns. I think the congressman needs to do his research better. I have spoken to the Department of Defense. I have spoken to the Secretary of the Navy. I have spoken to Admiral Aquilino. And they all said that it has to go through congressional process. And so that's what needs to be done, go through congressional process. And I don't see that happening at all.
Thank you, Governor. We'll move on to the next question, and it is in the category of education. And beginning this question would be Congressman Nicolas. Again, this is the education category. Congressman, school maintenance and construction projects like the replacement of Simon Sanchez High School have not proceeded as quickly as stakeholders have asked for or politicians have promised. If elected governor, what specifically would your administration do to address the delays that have stalled the progress? You have 90 seconds.
These long-standing issues are action items that need us to actually act. When I was a senator in the Guam legislature, I raised the point. I said, wow, it's so quick for us to renovate the Guam legislature building when at the same time, on the same time period, Simon Sanchez was brought up as an issue, and here we are today, I think almost 8 years later, talking about it. And so what we need to be doing is putting our words into action. And one of the things that I did when I was chairman of Committee on the Rules at the time was we reduced the legislature's budget by 20%. I set that money aside and I introduced legislation to put it into a special fund those many years ago for us to begin putting the finances in place to get Simon Sanchez rebuilt. That legislation, unfortunately, was just not successful because it wasn't supported by the governor at the time. We need to stop politicizing education. We need to stop politicizing these legacy issues and actually support real work to get these things done, actual work that's going to put money into resolving these issues. So as we speak, I know that Simon Sanchez is currently in the design phase right now, and we need to continue to commit the resources necessary for that to move forward. I'm not quite sure what the financing options are going to be for that. I'm not quite sure if this administration has done the necessary legwork to identify the resources for it. And the lack of transparency on the issue is just continuing the anxiety. So we need our administration to be communicating very clearly what the plans are and how they're going to be funded.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, school maintenance and construction projects like the replacement of Simon Sanchez High School have not proceeded as quickly as stakeholders have asked or politicians have promised. If elected governor, what specifically would your administration do to address the delays that have stalled their progress? You have 60 seconds.
We are putting action. We are aggressively acting on this Simon Sanchez project. When Josh and I had our first year in administration, we met with Simon Sanchez students. We met with the teachers. We aggressively pursued and worked the process through. And now we have Simon Sanchez design phase at 90%. Financing, we are working very closely with Senator Josen Agustin to increase the debt service financing so we can get the money that's necessary to move forward with construction. This construction is going to happen by the end of this year. That is a promise that Josh and I made, and we are going to deliver as we always have in every projects and programs that we said we would do.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
I think that the response actually underscores the problem. It took 4 years for us to get to the design phase of a project. Why does it take our government so long just to begin designing the solutions for us that our people have been waiting so many years for? We need to be getting in front of all these capital improvement issues. There's over $200 million in unfunded capital improvement projects throughout the school system. There hasn't even been conversation about that. Those are the kind of things that we need to be actively resolving, being very transparent about, and making sure the community knows what's going on so the anxiety is dealt with.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question deals with regional and international policy. Governor Lulian Guerrero, you are up next with this question. What role should Guam have in the ongoing and upcoming renegotiations of the Compact of Free Association? How would you secure this role as governor? What specific changes do you think needs to be made to the compacts in order to address financial and political imbalances that make the deal not fair for host communities like Guam? You have 90 seconds.
I think Guam should play a very active role in the Compact Impact negotiations. I have requested to come to the table for negotiations and was declined. I have also sent them a list of recommendations and a list of actions and amendments that need to be done. I have been also working very closely with the presidents of the various sovereign nations in our region. I think this is quite a demonstrated issue that needs congressional work, and it needs the congressmen to really work with the Secretary of Interior, to work with the Secretary of State, to work with Congress, to work with our other colleagues there. But sad to say, and a great disappointment, that is not happening. Really, this is something that we need to take quick action and response. And yes, he needs to be transparent too about this whole issue. And I have not heard one thing about the progress in terms of his involvement in it. If I was a congressman, I would be right there working with all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, your turn to answer the question. What role should Guam have in the ongoing and upcoming renegotiations of the Compact of Free Association? How would you secure this role as governor? And what specific changes do you think need to be made to the compacts in order to address financial and political imbalances that make the deal not fair for host communities like Guam?
As governor, I would work very closely with my congressional delegate. It's unfortunate that that is just not something that's been happening lately. And in working closely with my congressional delegate, I would, through them, make sure that Guam's voice is being heard within the committee, the Natural Resources Committee that has oversight over these compact negotiations. And there's a lot of work happening at the committee level. We're discussing with the various stakeholders in the compact states what their needs are. We're in communication with their ambassadors. And I've even been in direct communication with the various host communities, such as Hawaii, that's also part of the large host communities that are helping to address this compact migration issue. So there's a lot of work that's going on. There's just not a lot of collaboration coming out of the governor's office. And as governor, we will definitely work very closely with your congressional delegate. You know, there shouldn't be this this politicization where people are trying to make it seem like others aren't doing their job, or other communication should be happening because we're not communicating with each other. We need to talk to each other. As your governor, we will talk to your delegate.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Absolutely true. And I have tried to work with my congressional delegate. I have left phone calls, messages. I even went to his office where I was totally ignored. I have sent him my schedules when I'm over there to D.C., invited him to come and be part of our tour with the D.C. But yes, work with the congressional delegate, and I tried. And it's not because of lack of trying, but it's because I did not get a response from him.
Thank you, Governor.
Governor Delegate Nicolas, I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to directly answer the last part of the question. I understand it was a multi-part question, but specifically, what provisions in the Compacts of Free Association that you feel are either financially unfair or politically unfair to host communities like Guam? If given the opportunity, would you seek to change in these renegotiations? I'll give Governor Leon Guerrero, since she answered the question first, the first 30 seconds.
Sure. We've put in recommendations, Phill, to, for example, the provisions on migrants coming to Guam for education, for work, or for medical. And we have asked the immigration people, and also through the compact, to please make sure that they enforce that provision, and so that we have people coming here with a purpose, and people coming here to improve their livelihood, which we are very welcoming of.
Thank you, Governor. And again, Delegate Nicolas, 30 seconds to list one or two provisions specifically that you would like to change.
Well, first of all, what we're very happy with is that we were able to get compact migrants covered under Medicaid. That was some of the work that we did congressionally, and that helps to address the health care component of the migration. We were also able to get EITC fully funded, and so that turned the liability of EITC locally into an actual asset coming in when we have migrants coming in and working. We need to focus on the educational component. We're going to work very closely with our congressional delegate to figure out ways on how we can get more funding into education relative to the compact impact.
Thank you, Congressman.
Thank you both. Moving on to the next question. It's in the category of public safety. And answering this question first is Congressman Mike Nicolas. What is your plan to get more law enforcement officers patrolling villages, monitoring our borders, and guarding prisoners and detainees?
We've been putting a lot of thought, Sabrina and I, into what we need to do to really beef up the ability for us to have that kind of presence in our community. It's been a long-standing conversation. And of course, there's a lot of different ideas out there. one of the things that we looked at was how are we going to be able to recruit and retain? Because bringing in more personnel will give us the ability to be able to have the presence out there. And right now, these policies that are being implemented, like a $10,000 bonus for retirees coming back, that is not a long-term solution. We're going to expend that money, and the individuals are going to come back, and they're not going to be there for 20 more years. And this is a problem that we need to have a long-term solution for. So one of the things that we should explore is how is Guam and how are our territories such attractive recruitment places for the military? Well, there's two reasons. One is, of course, the benefits, and another is because there's a very clear-cut career track that they can undertake in order to advance and progress on their careers. Both of those things, I think, need to be implemented in order for us to attract and retain law enforcement personnel, for us to be able to get them out into the streets and to keep our communities safer. We need to be talking about these solutions and asking them, how are we going to be able to recruit and retain in a way that's going to provide us with a long-term outcome? So housing allowances are things that we should explore that's similar to the military, maybe more robust health insurance coverage, definitely looking at ways to improve the retirement timeline. Those are all possible solutions we can look at.
Congressman. Governor, what is your plan to get more law enforcement officers patrolling villages, monitoring our borders, and guarding prisoners and detainees?
Well, Josh and I don't just sit and put our thoughts together. We acted. As we can see, when we raised the salaries of our law enforcement, we did a study, and the salary of beginning law enforcement officer is $11 an hour. Now with the raise, it's $18 an hour. That's certainly a very attractive incentive and recruitment for our people. We also have been meeting with our villages and the people in the community, getting their feedback, getting their recommendations, working closely with them. We are expanding neighborhood watch programs because you see, this isn't just a government issue, this is a community-wide issue. So we want to hold hands with our community and move forward to ensure safety for our people and to have more visible police officers in our villages, in our streets, and in our schools so that people can feel safe in their homes and in their businesses.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, you have 30 seconds to rebut.
Sabrina and I, we talk about these things because we want to do them when we get in there. And that's something that's very significant about both of our track records. We're doers. And if we're here 4 years later still having these questions being asked of us in a debate, then clearly the response from the governor is inadequate to truly speak to the issue. How are we going to resolve this, and how are we going to act on it? Let's take meaningful action and not just political talk during campaign season. Even these pay raises are by executive order. This administration has not sent legislation down to the legislature to actually make it a part of the budget.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question deals with political status and decolonization. And answering this question first is Governor Lulian Guerrero. Do you believe only native inhabitants of Guam or the Chamorro people should vote in a political status plebiscite? Why or why not?
You know, political status is a very serious, I think, movement for a government to do. We have not been given the opportunity to determine our political status. Other people have. And I support, and I have made it public, that I feel it should be just for native inhabitants, because then it really is a self-determination of our own native inhabitants. People can get involved with the political status through a constitution once we already decide with ourselves. I am really very disappointed that the congressman has not taken an active role in this. We have seen just lately that Puerto Rico has put in a bill to do a binding vote for their political status. That's something I think that should be not just talked about, but it should be a very concrete action that this congressman should do, and has not. Where has he been in this whole political status discussion? Nowhere to be found.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, do you believe only native inhabitants of Guam or the Chamorro people should vote in a political status plebiscite? Why or why not? You have 60 seconds.
I believe everybody should be able to vote. And one of the things we need to be is upfront with our people. When the governor talks about Puerto Rico, what she's not being clear about is that Puerto Rico lets everybody vote. They didn't limit the vote to just native Taino Indians in Puerto Rico. They let everybody vote. And that's why the United States is able to advance legislation to Congress, because the vote conforms with the U.S. standard of universal suffrage and allowing everybody to vote. So if we really want to move this issue forward, and if we really want to empower a congressional delegate to be able to introduce legislation to make it happen, then let's let everybody vote on this issue. Let's all be a part of making the political future of our island something that we're all going to be working together for. This is one Guam, and I believe that Chamorros voting alongside all of the other people who call Guam home will have a very, very positive outcome, regardless of the politics that's being discussed about it today.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, you have 30 seconds to respond.
You do not have to wait for all the people to vote for political status. Do your job. Move forward with this bill. Help our people get a much more concrete, binding plebiscite. Right now, we are not. When we vote, it is just sort of like a survey. We need something stronger. We need something more concrete. And this is not being done by the congressman, which should be at that level.
I know that this is a sensitive issue for many people out there, so I wanted to give both of you again a 30-second opportunity to sort of clarify, I guess, with your contrasting answers, what would you say to either a native Chamorro or a non-native inhabitant of Guam who feels that your status of your stance of who should participate in a non-binding political plebiscite is morally wrong? I wanted to give you a 30-second.
In a non-binding?
That not including, in your case, Governor, that not including everyone is morally wrong, or in your case, Congressman, that including everyone is morally wrong in the issue of self-determination. I wanted to give you, because it's so sensitive, I wanted to give you each 30 seconds to kind of explain your position to those who may not understand or agree with it. And since we started with the governor first, we'll give her the first 30-second opportunity.
I don't think not including non-inhabitants is morally wrong. I think what is more moral is that, and ethical, is that we are moving forward for social justice. We have not been able to determine our political status, despite the fact that the United States has said that they would, despite the fact that the United Nations is totally supportive of it. So it's not a morally wrong thing. It's all about social justice to a group of people.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, 30 seconds for you as well.
Our Chamorro people have been through so much in our history. And of course, there's a lot of grievances and a lot of injury. But what's morally wrong, Phill, what's morally wrong is constantly telling our Chamorro people that we're somehow going to be able to do a Chamorro-only vote and it's going to move forward. This administration hasn't even held a vote. So let's not try and put this back onto the Congress. The Congress will not entertain a vote that's being done only by a single group of people. If we really want to advance the issue and if we want to talk about what's morally right or wrong, let's be truthful with our people and allow everyone to participate in the vote.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Congressman. That'll conclude our round of questions. Platform 2022. We hope you stick around because there's more from our Congressman, more from our Governor that we are going to be sharing with you right after this.
4 years ago, we pledged to make healthcare more accessible, raise nurses' pay, and invest in our healthcare system. We have kept that pledge.
We increased income limits so that more families qualify for Medicaid, and we've made important advancements in telemedicine.
Our community health centers responded to COVID-19 while continuing to provide critical services.
The dedicated teams at our local and private hospitals provided quality, compassionate health care, even in the toughest situations, all while maintaining the highest standards.
Our healthcare partners, like our clinics, have also stepped up to answer the challenges, and we cannot thank them enough.
But if we are to provide the best in health services, we must build a new hospital.
Let's continue to move forward. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask
This is Governor Guerrero, and I approve this message.
his 2 terms in Congress, Mike San Nicolas missed more votes than any previous Guam delegate and ranks highest of worst voting records in current Congress. San Nicolas went AWOL over and over again while pocketing hundreds of thousands from taxpayers. Mike didn't even bother to show up and vote for pandemic funding legislation for minority small businesses on Guam. He missed votes on pandemic funding for Guam residents struggling to pay rent. Instead, Mike San Nicolas was using tax dollars for family vacations and for $3,000 meals at the most exclusive DC restaurants. When Guam needed Mike, he abandoned us. Taxpayers paid Mike San Nicolas, and he didn't vote, so why should we vote for him? No show Congressman. No way, Mike.
This message was paid for by Responsible Guam, a political action committee. Peter J. Santos, Chairman.
Hafide, and welcome back to Platform 2022, the first gubernatorial debate of this year's election season. Before we move on to the next round of questions, I want to say thank you so much to some of our sponsors tonight. We have Linda's Diner and Rave in Paradise that's providing corned beef, fried rice, and Tanala Chutney for any of the candidates, campaigns, or guests who would like to take them up on that offer. So thank you so much. And we also want to thank our members of our organizing committee who worked so hard to make sure that we had such a great wealth of questions to ask Dr. Ron McNinch, Dr. Judy Guthertz, Jerry Cruz, Jeff Saavedra, and Erica Cruz. Thank you again for joining Mana and I late at night to help put this together.
Yes,
and
don't forget, after the show, we're going to have Dr. Ron McNinch
Yes.
and representatives from both the Republican and Democratic Party who will be in the Kandit studio, where they're going to give a breakdown and a kind of an analysis of the debate. This is, again, the very first debate of the gubernatorial season.
I don't want to give too much away, but anyone who is looking forward to longtime journalist Ginger Cruz returning to your screen might want to tune in to that after debate program.
And we will tell you, I think I'm supposed to tell you a little bit later on, but coming up in the future, in the near future, we're going to have a lieutenant governor's debate right here in Kandit.
Certainly, any opportunity to hear from the candidates that are looking for your vote, seeking public office, I think is definitely valuable to the voting public. So, without any further ado, let's begin our second round of questions. Once again, thank you so much to Governor Lulian Guerrero, Delegate Michael San Nicolas for joining us tonight for the benefit. And just to explain to our viewers, we did extend an invitation to Governor Felix Camacho, but we were not able to receive a response from his campaign.
Okay, so we'll move on to the second round of our questions tonight, and this one beginning, the question would be Congressman Mike San Nicolas. The question category is the economy and cost of living. Congressman, recent infighting at the Guam Visitors Bureau has led to discussions about potential changes in how the Bureau operates and governs itself. What reforms or updates would you support in order to address allegations and concerns expressed by GVB's management and board members? You have 90 seconds.
Well, I think that the absence of leadership on this issue, first and foremost, is something that we need to be very alarmed about. Here we are trying to emerge from a pandemic, and our primary industry is in chaos at the leadership level. And this governor has not stepped in to bring everybody back to the table and say, hey guys, let's powwow this and figure it out, because we have an island to stand back up again. And I think that absence of leadership is something that really needs to be called for what it is, because, you know, there's so many people on this island who are unemployed and underemployed. Our primary industry right now is still not revving up, and our competitors are bringing in the visitors that we're trying to attract. So we need to definitely have leadership from the administration level actually providing the leadership and getting everybody together to work together to figure these things out. I don't think reform necessarily needs to be the topic of discussion. I think communication needs to first be the topic of discussion. And everybody needs to sit down and work their problems out and come together on a Team Guam approach. You know, it's one of those catchphrases that gets thrown around so often politically, and yet here we are, no Team Guam and no leadership to make there actually be a Team Guam on something so important. So I wouldn't rush to reform. I would first rush in and make sure that we're able to have everybody having a conversation about these things. They shouldn't be issues being fought about in the newspapers and the media. These are things that should be talked about at the table, and this is something that requires leadership.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, recent infighting at the Guam Visitors Bureau has led to discussions about potential changes to how the Bureau operates and governs itself. What reforms or updates would you support in order to address allegations and concerns expressed by GVB's management and board members?
I don't think it's a fight. I think it's a disagreement of different positions. You certainly have a great leader in former Governor Carl Gutierrez. He's a proven leader. He was governor, and he moved this island so much further. I also believe that there's great leadership in the chair and the various people that are there that I have appointed or have been elected. These are mature businessmen. These are experienced leaders. And so I wanted them to get together, which they did. They are working it out because it's best that they work it out amongst themselves. Communication, yes, is key. And I have communicated with the board members and with the management. And I know that they will resolve these issues for better progress and a unity in tourism.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
These are examples of what happens when we're not taking an active approach in resolving things that are so critical to our community. You know, we're still trying to get GVB to work together, and in the meantime, our tourism touch points are not getting addressed, and things are just not ready for us to bring the visitors in and have us actually give them an experience that's going to have them go back home and say, wow, that was worth the risk coming to Guam, because it was just exceptional. Bathrooms are still broken, paintings are not taking place. You know, there's a lot that needs to be done.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question deals with infrastructure, and answering this question would be Governor Lulian Guerrero. Governor, Guam still relies heavily on foreign workers for skilled jobs in construction and other fields. What more can our next governor do to expand opportunities to learn a trade or otherwise prepare our local workforce to be qualified for jobs Guam-based businesses need?
Yes, I have taken this issue as far up as the White House. I have taken it to issues of the Department of Labor, to Homeland Security. H-2B workers are critical to our construction industry and to our infrastructure expansion and improvement. However, I have gotten good response from the White House, and we are working very closely. We now have H-2B workers that are more than workers in the last 5-6 years. I also have worked very closely with various congressional leaders and the Secretary of State to please include in the legislation include civilian projects to be part of the H-2B workers coming over here for approval. It's unfortunate that I had to go over there and do the work of the congressman. I have not heard anything that he has done to make the H-2B worker situation a little bit easier here. And the military is also doing that job. So it's unfortunate when you talk about leaders that we have a leader that is absent in Congress.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, Guam still relies heavily on foreign workers for skilled jobs in construction and other fields. What more can our next governor do to expand opportunities to learn a trade or otherwise prepare our local workforce to be qualified for jobs that Guam-based businesses need?
Well, first I'd like to respond by saying that we were actually the ones that passed the H-2B amendment in the NDAA that opened it up for us to be able to address the housing crisis here on our island. But the question, Mana, specifically was how can we create more of these kind of trade opportunities for our people? I think what we need to do is we need to invest in education. We need to put more money into education in Guam Community College and the University of Guam to expand the availability of these programs so that our people can go in there and take on various skill sets. Right now, it's still very limited. We need to begin thinking bigger and actually moving bigger. We need a school of technology at the University of Guam. We need active cybersecurity training programs because that's a very, very growing industry throughout the world. And so if we're proactive, if we're getting in front of these issues and providing the capacity for those education opportunities to take place, then we'll see more of our people getting into those trades. So let's build that capacity.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, you have 30 seconds.
Yes, this is a really big demonstration of how clueless Congressman Nicolas is with Guam. We do have an active cybersecurity training program. We had boot camps that we sent people to. We have shifted and redirected the skills of our laborers into ship repairs, construction workers, cybersecurity, trucking, and so forth. And so if he would have stayed here and been more engaged in the community, he would have known that.
Thank you, Governor. Now, this question is a toss-up. It comes from our miscellaneous category. And it'll go to Congressman Mike Nicolas first. Congressman, over the next 4 years, how will your administration handle the revitalization and restoration of Hagåtña? What major projects organized in current and past master plans will you be able to finish should you be elected the governor?
Well, first, in the Congress, we're moving forward legislation to have national heritage areas studied here on the island. And that's something that's been available since the mid-'80s, and the legislation never actually got introduced. So we're very proud to actually have that move forward in the Congress. It passed in the House of Representatives. It's currently with the Senate, and we're anticipating that it might be included in a larger package come June. So we're excited about that. That's going to bring in federal dollars into our heritage areas as soon as those heritage areas are studied and identified. And we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain sites like Tiguan and Menengun and even our Plaza de España. Once we have that study completed and we have the federal dollars identified, then let's look at different unique ways to focus local resources into those things. One of the opportunities that we could explore is making sure that funding for the Hagåtña Revitalization Project is actually in place. That could actually be done with a special assessment on the property taxes of Hagåtña to be able to fund those kind of improvements, because ultimately, whether we bring in federal dollars or we use local dollars, it's still going to require the funding source to actually be there. So let's identify that funding source. Let's tie it in directly to where the project is located. Hagåtña redevelopment, tie directly into a Hagåtña assessment will be a win-win for the community, and it would also encourage business development in the area and the proper upkeep and maintenance of those heritage sites. So we're excited about doing that federally. Let's do it locally.
Thank you. Governor, over the next 4 years, how will your administration handle the revitalization and restoration of Hagåtña? And what major projects organized in current and past master plans will you be able to finish should you be re-elected as governor?
The congressman's response again shows how clueless he is by not being here. There is a master plan that has been passed by the board and is now being discussed in the legislature. Funding sources has already been identified, and if he would also do his research, it would show that yes, property taxes are part of the funding source for our HRRA projects. So I think it's very evident that research by him has not been done, studies have been done, a master plan has been done that we have invested millions of dollars in, And it's very clear and very directed, and a master plan that can be followed to revitalize Hagåtña.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
Again, I think that before we focus on committing local resources for this, let's take full advantage of the federal opportunities that we've put into place. But beyond that, I don't think we should be raising everybody's property taxes to be paying for Hagåtña redevelopment. Let's focus it on a Hagåtña assessment. And, again, the fact that we're here having a debate on this conversation after 4 years of this administration, we're still talking about a plan. I mean, it's the exact same circle that we've seen of Simon Sanchez. It doesn't take 4 years for us to get these things moving, so let's get these things going.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question is in the category of health. And yes. Oh, no, sorry, wrong color. The color code for health is red. And this question goes to Governor Lulian Guerrero. Knowing what we know now about COVID-19, what is one aspect of GovGuam's response you believe was absolutely correct and one that was absolutely should have been different? Do you think our island is better prepared for a pandemic in the future?
I do believe our island is much better prepared for future pandemics than Mana. I am not hoping for a future pandemic. I think we've gone through some major struggles, major hardships, anxiety, fear, anger, frustration within these last 2.5 years. We need to recover, which we are. What we did right is making the hard decisions and doing the quick responses and responding as the virus evolves. We used our expertise in science and data. We worked very closely with the White House and Congress to help us get through this pandemic. I am a bit sad that not once did our congressman pick up the phone and say to me, Governor, what is it that I can help? What is it that I can do? He was not even here during the 2.5 years of the pandemic. Josh and I were on the ground, boots on the ground, helping our people, crying with them, working with them. We have kept our people safe as a result of our hard decisions and as a result of our community's cooperation and our community's support and our community's determination to protect themselves.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, knowing what we know now about COVID-19, what is one aspect of GovGuam's response you believe was absolutely correct and one that absolutely should have been different? Do you think our island is better prepared for a pandemic in the future?
I believe the mobilization of the National Guard and involving them in the vaccination process was the right move. I want to credit Governor Lulian Guerrero for taking the lead on that, and for General Agagi and all the troops in the National Guard stepping up and really making that happen. That was excellent. And our people answering the call to vaccination, that was just so commendable. It was just one of those things that really just lifts your spirits at a time that things aren't feeling so great. What went wrong? There's a long list of what went wrong. But I think the biggest things that went wrong were the divisiveness out of this administration, the saying that this was a pandemic of the unvaccinated and targeting people for having made some difficult decisions whether they're going to do it or not. You don't divide the community at a time when you're trying to bring them all together to have a unified response to something like a pandemic. And the other thing was inconsistencies. There was a car score that was making all these decisions, and now all of a sudden that just vanished and got thrown out the window. Inconsistency is not something that we need at a time during a pandemic.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, you have 30 seconds.
The community was not divided. In fact, the community was so united. Our government wrapped its hands around our community. We worked to getting a 97% vaccination rate, the first in the nation. I am glad that Congressman recognized our hard work and agrees that what we did for all that we did is the right decisions.
Thank you, Governor. And the next question deals with the federal government and the military buildup. And answering this question first is Congressman Mike San Nicolas. Many governors would find themselves lucky to have even 90 seconds with the current President of the United States. Imagining that within your first 100 days, you get the chance to have the time allotted to respond to this question with the President, Joe Biden, what would you say to him?
With respect, could you repeat the question? It was respect to the military buildup?
Absolutely, I'll read it again. Many governors would find themselves lucky to have 90 seconds with the current President of the United States. Imagining that within your first 100 days, you get the chance to have the time allotted to respond or to spend time with the President, Joe Biden. What would you say to him?
One of the things that was really eye-opening in the Congress is just how inundated leaders are on a regular basis. 90 seconds is a lot of time to get with the president. And in those 90 seconds, it's important for us to communicate very clearly what it is that our island needs and how the administration can be helpful on that. And that's why, again, it's so important for us to work very closely with our congressional delegate. Because in the end, 90 seconds is 90 seconds, but the follow-through out there federally is what's going to turn those 90 seconds into actionable items. So when you have these opportunities, there's a million and one things we can talk about. We can talk about how we need to get Guam included in more federal programs that we still haven't closed the loop on. We can have conversations about how we want to make sure that the military, as it flourishes here with the military buildup, is still going to be something that integrates properly into the community. We can have conversations about including us in trade agreements, and that's something that I wrote to the president just recently about. So I think that it's important for us to take whatever opportunities we can. Usually those 90 seconds will be best spent capturing the national mood, because when the administration is focusing on something that is geared towards a national outcome, if we have a conversation about what Guam needs aligned with that outcome, that's more likely to get a response.
Okay. Thank you.
I'm actually very amazed that the congressman has not had the opportunity to meet with the president for 90 days. During my first 100, I went over there and met with President Trump. And that's when I asked him, President Trump, can you pay us the EITC? And he said, Governor, will be done. And it was done. We got 100% EITC reimbursement, when the congressman was really just advocating 75% of EITC. I remember that discussion, and I said to him, Congressman, we need to be more risky out there, and we need to make sure that we get 100% EITC. That was said in a testimony in front of the Congress.
Congressman, you have 30 seconds.
Actually, EITC reimbursements weren't done under the Trump administration. And that's why I think the governor and whoever is governor needs to focus locally on the local issues. There's so many local issues. We need to stop this practice of pretending we're doing things federally. EITC did not happen under the Trump administration. We actually got it passed in the American Rescue Plan that was during the Biden administration. And we're very grateful that we had sit-down opportunities with Vice President Harris to have those kind of conversations. And, those are the kind of things that, again, you got to work with your delegate to make those things happen.
Thank you, Congressman. We'll move on to the last question of this round, and it's dealing with education. Should we take a break? Are you okay? Okay. So this question going to Governor Guerrero, dealing with education. Given the local laws limit the direct involvement of the governor, what is your assessment of the way the Guam Department of Education is administered? If given the opportunity, would you change the selection process or the authority of our public school superintendent or education board?
The way the Guam Education Board is structured, I think makes for a possible maybe alienation. But that has not happened in our administration. Josh and I, on the first 100 days of our administration, have made it a point to communicate very closely with the Department of Education, John Fernandez, as our superintendent. We meet with him regularly. We support him. We gave him the resources that he needed to move the Department of Education forward. And so, talking about communications, Josh and I communicate very closely with stakeholders, leaders, our constituents, students, teachers. In fact, we developed a youth council, and the youth council was giving us also recommendations and actions which we instituted, and that is the salary increases of our teachers. So our administration is very welcoming. Our administration is very communicative. Our administration is very approachable. And that's proven because we have worked very closely with these agencies that is structured in such a way that maybe can cause alienation.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman?
Mana, would you mind repeating the question?
Absolutely. Well, given that local laws limit the direct involvement of the governor, what is your assessment of the way the Guam Department of Education is administered? If given the opportunity, would you change the selection process or authority of our public school superintendent or education board?
Well, I first want to wish outgoing Superintendent John Fernandez well. He's taken on the task of education longer than I think any superintendent in the country. He's been running that ship for the last 10 years, and he's been doing it in circumstances that were just grossly unfunded year after year. It's difficult for us to try and point the finger at the selection process or at the Guam Education Policy Board when funding for education has just been chronically low. And I think that an administration needs to focus on how they can support education by making sure that greater funding opportunities are going to be there. You know, one of the things that we're just so happy with in the Congress is we were able to get so much funding into our education system. For the first time, we were able to buy school textbooks, you know, and that's been purchase of federal funds. So let's be a little slow going in blaming or pointing fingers at the board or the selection process, and let's try and get more resources into our education system.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, you have 30 seconds to respond.
You're absolutely right. Let's not blame them. I don't know who's blaming them. I certainly didn't blame them. But also, we have pumped in a lot of investment into our Department of Education. Josh and I have pumped in more than $50 million specifically to our education. We've pumped in money so our students can have broadband internet, and we've pumped in money so that UOG and GCC's cost for broadband can be minimized.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Congressman. That completes our second round of questions for Platform 2022, the first gubernatorial debate of this year's election season. We're going to take another break to hear from our sponsors, and we will be right back with more after these.
4 years ago, we said we would make public safety a priority, and we did. We believe that law enforcement officers are important, and we gave them a pay raise because we value their sacrifices to keep us safe.
We said we would ensure there are more police officers in our villages, and we delivered. We promised to provide them new vehicles and the tools they need to protect you, and we have.
We assured you we would promote community policing, and we are working with neighborhood watch programs in the villages.
We pledged to expand drug treatment services to help people become productive members of society.
And so we opened a detox unit and are expanding capacity.
4 years ago, we made these commitments and we delivered.
Let's continue our progress. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask for your vote. This is Governor Guerrero, and I approve this message.
I hope that you are enjoying this debate between the candidates for the governor of Guam. Governor Camacho and Governor Leon Guerrero both have records as governor that we can compare and contrast. Governor Camacho had it rough when he served as governor. He started his first term with a natural disaster. It wasn't easy, and it also didn't help that he had such a rocky relationship with his lieutenant governor. History has not been kind to Governor Camacho. Guam has had to deal with so many critical problems and issues after he was governor that all came as a direct result of his mismanagement during his tenure. His so-called solutions created so many more problems than they solved. We must keep this in mind. Governor Leon Guerrero has also had it rough, and a few of her appointees have been disappointing. But despite that, under her leadership, Guam is doing a lot better than the majority of other jurisdictions during this pandemic. There are still lots of room for improvement. Nothing's ever perfect, but I'd say she's doing a great job, all things considered. This message was paid for by Responsible Guam, a political action committee. Peter J. Santos, Chairman.
Hafide, and welcome back to Platform 2022, a gubernatorial debate brought to you proudly by Kandit News and The Point. Before we begin our final round of questions, once again, we'd really like to thank some folks that helped make tonight happen. We're so grateful to the Committee to Re-elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Linda's Diner and Raven Paradise, Guam Auto Spot, Responsible Guam Political Action Committee, Kandit News Group, and Choice Broadcasting Stations. That is us.
Yes, and joining us also is PBS Guam, which is also airing tonight. Jesse Mendiola and Matt Mendiola, and Kat Nidababo, Itini Guam, Gasolina Drinks Guam for after the show, and Dr. Ron McNinch, Dr. Judy Guthertz, Jerry Cruz, and Jeff.
Yes, Jeff Savadra and Erica Cruz. Thank you so much for everyone who helped make tonight possible. We also want to remind you that after tonight's debate, there's going to be a special program featuring analysis from Dr. Ron McNinch, who helped develop the questions. We also have some very special guests. I saw Ginger Cruz in the house, so she might be picking up. But we really want to just say thank you to everyone who's joining us. The online engagement has been so fantastic. It just really shows that our voters and our residents are ready to learn more about the candidates who are running for governor. And just as a friendly reminder, you cannot vote if you are not registered to vote. So please visit gec.guam.gov to learn more. Call your mayor's office, your village mayor's office, and I'm sure the campaigns wouldn't mind getting a phone call from you because they always have a volunteer registrar or two to help people out.
Yes, indeed.
So we're going to begin with our final round of questions. Thank you so much again to Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, to Delegate Michael St. Nicolas for joining us here tonight for Platform 2022.
Yes, and let's begin the third and final round of questions. The first question going to Congressman Mike St. Nicolas. It's regarding regional and international policy. Congressman, how will your administration help combat the push from China to increase its financial and military presence in Micronesia and the Indo-Pacific region?
Well, that's a very interesting question. I think that's more an issue of national security and federal policy. I think that as an administration, what we can do is continue to communicate, again, as I mentioned earlier, with our delegate and make sure that they're being given as much information and support as possible to advocate nationally for us to have the national security response mechanisms in place. I think having a greater openness from civil defense, coming up with plans and procedures for us to undertake in the event that certain threats were to materialize, and having our people made more aware of what those are, teaching them in our public schools, making them available to our community to find more easily online, I think would be a great thing. But I really believe that one of the advantages of being a U.S. territory is the fact that the United States military and the United States national security apparatus is very focused on China. and an administration, a governor and a lieutenant governor need to focus on supporting the local delegate office and supporting the investments that are going to be made nationally in order for us to be more prepared for those kind of threats. But as far as committing local resources towards that, I think having perhaps a more open civil defense response and something that's more community involved would be a good thing.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, how will your administration help combat the push from China to increase its financial and military presence in Micronesia and the Indo-Pacific region?
I think working very closely with the military would be the answer, and that is what I have done. I've worked very closely with our naval military. I've worked very closely with our Marine Corps military. I've worked very closely with the Department of Defense to push back China, and also to improve more security events here. We have also worked very closely with the missile defense systems to try and get back more of our national security stance and be much more formidable and be much, much stronger with that.
Thank you, Governor. You have 30 seconds to respond.
Thank you, Mana. I believe the governor and I see eye to eye on this issue. And I believe that all of us, regardless of where we stand politically, should absolutely stand together when it comes to making sure that our community is going to be as safe as possible from these international threats. Again, working very closely with the national government, the federal government, and making sure that we are as much of a partnership as we can be, whether it's with the governor's example or with some of the examples we shared. That is something that we all should be doing, and I would encourage whomever the people would choose to sit in this office to do the same.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question deals with public safety. And it would be addressed to Governor Lulian Guerrero. Ma'am, do you believe local judges and prosecutors have too much discretion when deciding plea bargains, sentences, and pretrial releases for repeat criminals?
I really believe that. I know that the police officers do a lot of work out there to deter crime. I really believe that they make the arrest that's necessary. And sometimes when it goes before the judges, if it goes before the attorneys, plea bargaining and plea agreements do occur, I think, more frequently than it should. I believe it should go through the judicial process. I believe that these perpetrators should go before the courts and to make sure that they are corrected or confined and convicted. Otherwise, they go right back out into the community, which makes it a little bit very frustrating, and also less safe in our community. So I do believe that there has been too much plea bargaining, and I think they should move forward in the judicial process and get the perpetrators its due penalty and punishment.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, do you believe local judges and prosecutors have too much discretion when deciding plea bargains, sentences, and pretrial releases for repeat criminals?
I believe that our judicial system is operating within the framework of the law. And so I think that kind of a question certainly needs to be put to our local legislature. If the community feels like certain crimes need to have more robust outcomes, then absolutely, let's have those conversations with our local lawmakers and let's make sure that those more robust outcomes are written into the law. I do know that plea bargains and certain concessions are used perhaps as law enforcement strategies to be able to go after bigger fish, quote unquote, and we don't want to necessarily get in the way of that either. But I think an overall solution, and something we should all have a conversation about, is whether or not we need an elected prosecutor. Because an elected prosecutor would need to answer directly for why they have taken the various plea bargains or reduced sentences. And in so doing, the public will be able to determine whether or not those decisions were something that they want to maintain and re-elect with an elected prosecutor.
Thank you. Governor, you have 30 seconds.
I think this is something that Congressman and I agree on, and we have to be united in this. We have to all work together because we do need to deter crime, we do need to decrease crime, And we do need to move forward with more arrests and convictions so that our community can continue feeling safe in this island.
Thank you, Governor. The next question deals with political status and decolonization. And answering the question first is Congressman Mike San Nicolas. Congressman, if you're elected governor, can you promise there will be a plebiscite vote in the next 4 years? Why or why not?
I believe we can. I believe we can. But I believe that we should have an even bigger conversation. I think we should be talking about a constitution. I think that we need to really figure out whether or not a constitution is something that we should be moving forward. Back, I believe it was in the late 70s, the idea of a constitution was floated, a constitutional convention known as a CONCON was created, and then the whole process moved forward only for it to fail in a public referendum. In the meantime, Puerto Rico passed a constitution decades ago, and now here they are very, very close to having a federal process to move forward a federally recognized vote. And so I believe that we can take meaningful steps towards our self-governance by bringing the Constitution conversation back to the table. And then after moving forward with that document, which will give us confidence in knowing what our government is going to look like when we take the next step towards political status change, I think at that point we should begin having the conversation about having an actual status vote.
Thank you, Congressman. Governor, if you're re-elected governor, can you promise there will be a plebiscite vote in the next 4 years? Why or why not?
I think right now, as governor, I am working towards a plebiscite vote because we need to quickly determine what our political status. A lot of our challenges and a lot of our issues are as a result of our inability to determine what our political status. Governing, government, and all that, I think, raises from the basis of our political status. So I think we should move aggressively forward for a plebiscite, and I am working very hard to make that happen during this term.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, you have 30 seconds to respond.
Again, I'd just like to reiterate that as we have these conversations and these big picture issues move forward, we need to involve everybody. You know, we need to involve everybody because if we're going to want to actually be able to get a federal process moving forward for us to have our status determination recognized, it's going to have to include everybody participating.
Thank you, Congressman. The next question deals with the economy and cost of living. And answering this question first would be Governor Leon Guerrero. Since it was increased, there has been a consistent call from some government leaders and businesses to reduce the business privilege tax because it will ease the pass-through cost to consumers. What do you believe is the appropriate rate for this tax? And if it should be lowered, what corresponding cut would you make to the local government's budget?
You know, the business privilege tax was raised during this last administration. And as a result, I think it has created us a financial opportunity that we were able to retire deficit, increase our cash flow, and move forward with the financial means to make sure that we continue public services out there. So most of our small businesses also pay only 3%. And I think our tax structure, our tax rate is reasonable. I think it's affordable, and I think we need to continue on so we can have the revenue source to move our public services forward.
Thank you, Governor. Congressman, since it was increased, there has been a consistent call from some government leaders and businesses to reduce the business privilege tax because it will ease the pass-through cost to consumers. What do you believe is the appropriate rate for this tax? And if it should be lowered, what corresponding cut would you make to the local government budget?
I'm going to say something that's very not Democrat, but I believe that we need to, as much as possible, make every effort to reduce tax burdens. I think that the more we can reduce tax burdens and put more money back into circulation, whether it's into businesses or into the community, that's going to help grow our economy. I think that we always have to an eye towards doing that. And I think the way that we can do it circles back to what I mentioned in our opening statement when I said that our government budget went from $300 million to $1 billion in 20 years. As we grow revenues, as we grow our economy, we need to be taking every new dollar that we bring in and really evaluating it and saying, can we take this dollar and use it to reduce taxes? Can we take this dollar and use it to reduce debt? Can we take this dollar and use it to reinvest in our government in a meaningful way that's actually going to have a return on investment greater than that dollar? Let's be looking at new revenue as opportunities for us to reduce tax burdens, invest in our community, and reduce our debt burdens.
Governor, your 30-second rebuttal.
Yes, you know, I'm pretty flexible. I'm a pretty approachable. I can look at circumstances. And if these circumstances come forward and it looks like we can replace the revenues by new industries and replace the BPT taxes, I'm open to discussion with all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Governor. The next question, we're nearing the end of our last round. This next question goes to Congressman Mike Nicolas up first, and it deals with infrastructure and workforce. Congressman, for decades, administrations have struggled to convince more residents to use mass transit services. As of Friday, the final buses leave their last fixed route destination by 9 p.m. What will your administration do to make public transit a more viable option for residents who live down south or need transportation in early morning or late night hours?
I don't know what's going on, but I'm not catching my breath.
Okay.
We're going to take a break, and we're going to attend to the governor. But we want to thank you. Of course, safety is paramount here, so we're not going to tie to a schedule just because we want to answer questions in 90 seconds. We're going to be right back. We beg the indulgence of our audience. Thank you so much for understanding, and we will be right back after this.
Our workforce is changing, and our students need to be prepared to face the challenges that lie ahead.
Real investments in education require real action so that our kids have the best chance to succeed.
We gave teachers a pay raise because we value the important work they do for our children every day.
We provided funds that support children with special needs and their families so that their challenges can be addressed.
We promised to rebuild Simon Sanchez High School, and we are.
We expanded connection to the internet and community programs to empower our children.
We expanded access to training, and we provided scholarships so anyone interested could get certified.
4 years ago, we made these commitments and we delivered.
Let's continue our progress. We are all in this together, and we humbly ask for your vote. This is Governor Guerrero, and I approve this message.
His 2 terms in Congress, Mike San Nicolas missed more votes than any previous Guam delegate and ranks highest of worst voting records in current Congress. San Nicolas went AWOL over and over again while pocketing hundreds of thousands from taxpayers. Mike didn't even bother to show up and vote for pandemic funding legislation for minority small businesses on Guam. He missed votes on pandemic funding for Guam residents struggling to pay rent. Instead, Mike San Nicolas was using tax dollars for family vacations and for $3,000 meals at the most exclusive DC restaurants. When Guam needed Mike, he abandoned us. Taxpayers paid Mike San Nicolas, and he didn't vote, so why should we vote for him? No show, Congressman. No way, Mike.
This message was paid for by Responsible Guam, a political action committee. Peter J. Santos, Chairman.
Well, the adage is there for a reason. Anything can happen on live television. We want to thank our viewers for understanding, and we just ask you to please keep the governor in your thoughts and prayers. She is being seen to by a physician,
Yes.
and so she was able to get immediate medical attention. Unfortunately, this is going to abruptly close our first debate, but there's plenty of time before the primary election to get more information, plenty of time before the general election to get more information on the candidates seeking office. We just again want to thank the governor, Lulian Guerrero, and our congressman, Nicolas, for their time. And we certainly do hope for the best. And the governor is in our thoughts at this time.
Yes, absolutely. And thank you to both of them for their participation and their really heartfelt answers that they were able to provide during our debate. Before we go, I want to remind everyone to register to vote.
Yes.
You can do it online. You can visit your mayor's office, or you can visit any of the electoral camps, the Republican or the Democrats.
And if you want more details, I mean, they really spell it out for you thanks to the Guam Election Commission. So just go
online. All you need is your driver's license.
to gec.guam.gov. They'll tell you where, when, and how to register to vote in time to vote for the primary or general elections.
And then before we go, we'll thank again our sponsors who were so generous with us tonight.
The Committee to Re-elect Leon Guerrero Tenorio, Linda's Diner and Rave in Paradise, Guam Auto Spot, Responsible Guam Political Action Committee, Kandit News Group, and Choice Broadcasting Stations.
PBS Guam, Jesse Mendiola and Matt Mendiola, Kat Neda Babel, IT&E Guam, Gasolina Drink Guam, and of course our panel of question.
They were so awesome. Thank you to Dr. Ron
Yes.
McNinch, Dr. Judy Guthertz, Jerry Cruz, Jeff Saavedra, and Erica Cruz. And although the debate is going to end here, this is not the last that you can get from Kandit News. We definitely will have a post-debate analysis. I'm sure an abrupt ending and whether or not that's going to have an impact is going to be a topic of discussion. So Dr. Ron McNinch and representatives from the Democrat and Republican camps, I understand, are also have been invited to join in.
Absolutely, yes.
So thank you so much for joining us. Again, you're going to have to tune in because you never know what's going to happen. Literally anything can occur when it's live and on Kandit. And the point.
You know what? I also want to thank Eric and Zach and Johnny, of course.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And the Kandit kids who've been keeping us going all day long.
It's been very, very great. I'm excited to enjoy the Linda's that has been catered for
And
us.
the gasolina.
If you haven't tried the Tanala Chutney, I don't know what they put in the marinade, but it is not the kind that you just get from the tonki in the back.
Good night, everyone.
Good
Thank
night,
you.
everyone.